Hey guys, Dan here with this week's TV news and reviews. We have 3 new shows to tackle in the review portion, and then the big binge for the week, which is going to be Little Fires Everywhere. I reviewed the very first episode of that back a few months ago, but now I have binged the whole thing, and we're going to review it in detail at the end of the show. But first up, the TV news, and the only thing really to talk about this week is the Emmy nominations, which have come out. It's going to be a virtual ceremony or something. They're not going to have a whole live ceremony, but it is going to happen September 13th, I guess. Or no, I'm sorry. That's the Creative Arts Awards. The September 20th date is going to be for the Primetime Emmys. Jimmy Kimmel is still on tap to host, but again, it's going to be all sort of virtual. I don't know what it's going to look like, but they didn't want to move it at all, which makes sense. The TV season, for the most part, got to wrap up where it needed to. Now, for next year, I don't know. Everything's sort of up in the air with filming and stuff, but let's just go over some of these nominees. And we had talked a few weeks ago about how they were upping the number of nominations. I think we talked about it on the show here. That the best comedy of the year, best drama of the year would be up from 6 to 8 nominations, and then the acting categories would depend on how many submissions they received for each one. But there's now 8 in the mix for best comedy and best drama, which I think is interesting. All right, so for comedy series, the nominations are Curb Your Enthusiasm. I still have not seen the last, I think, 2 seasons of that. I got to catch up on that, but I love that show. Dead to Me, excellent, excellent. We did a whole review on season 2 of that. Good Place, excellent as well. Just wrap that up. Insecure, I haven't seen any of the new season. Kaminsky Method, I think I only saw season 1. This would be season 2 for that. Mrs. Maisel, I just finished season 3. Another great season there. Schitt's Creek, I really have to get started on. I know everybody's been talking about that for the last couple of years. And then What We Do in the Shadows is the last one. Haven't seen that. I enjoyed the movie very much, but haven't seen the show yet. Just one mainstream network nomination there for The Good Place. And, this is kind of how the award shows have been going. Specifically, the Golden Globes this past edition didn't have anything that wasn't either streaming or like HBO. Maybe Showtime got in there too, but it was all like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, HBO, like all of it. This has at least a few network things. The Good Place is up for Best Comedy, but then Blackish has a few nominations as well in some of the acting categories, and then for dramas, you've got This Is Us up for a few things as well. But Outstanding Lead Actor in Comedy Series, Anthony Anderson for Blackish, Don Cheadle for Black Monday, which I have not seen yet. I keep seeing ads for it. Ted Danson on The Good Place, Michael Douglas on The Kaminsky Method, Eugene Levy on Schitt's Creek, and Rami Youssef on Rami. Oh, I love that show. So that's a good batch. Outstanding Lead Actress, Christina Applegate for Dead to Me, Rachel Brosnahan for Mrs. Maisel, Linda Cardellini for Dead to Me, Catherine O'Hara for Schitt's Creek, Issa Rae for Insecure, and Tracy Ellis Ross for Blackish. Again, great lineups. I mean, so far, of the things I've seen, I would give Outstanding Comedy Series probably 2. I mean, it's The Good Place's last season, and they wrapped it up real well. I'd probably give it to The Good Place. I know they probably won't, but I would. Outstanding Actor, I don't know. I mean, they're all pretty good. Ted Danson, obviously, in The Good Place is great. Rami Youssef is excellent as well. I feel like Blackish is it's still good, but it's like, I don't know, it's getting kind of long in the tooth for me. I don't know that 6 or 7 seasons in we need to be nominating these people. For Best Actress, probably one of the gals for Dead to Me. I mean, they were just so good on that show. Supporting Actor, Mahershala Ali for Rami, Alan Arkin for Kaminsky. Oh, Andre Braugher on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's a great one. Sterling K. Brown on Mrs. Maisel. I feel like that's more of a guest spot. I think he was only in a handful of the episodes, but all right. William Jackson Harper as Chidi for Good Place. He's great. Dan Levy for Schitt's Creek. Tony Shalhoub, Mrs. Maisel, and Kenan Thompson, SNL. And then for supporting actress, Alex Borstein for Mrs. Maisel. Darcy Carden for Good Place. Betty Gilpin for Glow. That's a good one. Maren Hinkle for Mrs. Maisel. Kate McKinnon and Cecily Strong both for SNL. And Annie Murphy for Schitt's Creek, and Yvonne Orji, it's O-R-J-I, I would say Orji, I guess, for Insecure. some of those shows I haven't seen, but I feel like Andre Braugher definitely deserves an award for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm not sure if he's. I know he's never won one. I don't know if he's been nominated in seasons past, but God, he's so great on that show, and just a great show all around. That is a really strong lineup. Sterling K. Brown's great in Mrs. Maisel. I don't think he necessarily deserves a supporting actor award for it, though. Chidi on The Good Place is outstanding. Yeah, there's some good ones there. Supporting actors in comedy series. I mean, I always love Alex Borstein on Mrs. Maisel. But Darcy Carden, I mean, it's the last season for Good Place. I would love to see a Good Place sweep, at the Emmys. All right, so there's writing and stuff as well. Let's move down to the drama, though. Most of these, I'll be honest, I haven't seen. Outstanding drama series, Better Call Saul. I am a season behind because I watch it on Netflix, so I haven't seen the most current season. The Crown, I've not seen. The Handmaid's Tale, I've not seen. Killing Eve, I gotta get on. The Mandalorian, I've seen a little bit of. Ozark, I'm behind on. Stranger Things, I'm behind on. Succession, I've never seen, so I don't have an opinion there. But again, none of them are network shows. The closest thing would be AMC, Better Call Saul. But and I guess BBC America for Killing Eve, but everything else is either streaming or HBO. Lead actor in a drama series, Jason Bateman for Ozark. Sterling K. Brown for This Is Us. Oh, that's my show. Steve Carell for The Morning Show. Brian Cox for Succession. Billy Porter for Pose. And Jeremy Strong for Succession. I hear Billy Porter's really good, too, on Pose. Steve Carell was good on The Morning Show, but I don't think he deserves it over some of these other people. Sterling K. Brown, I always love. Lead actress in drama, Jennifer Aniston for The Morning Show. Olivia Colman for The Crown. Jodie Comer for Killing Eve. Laura Linney for Ozark. I like that show, but I think she's overrated on it. Sandra Oh for Killing Eve. And Zendaya for Euphoria, which I've not seen. So there again, I've not seen a lot of these. I think Jennifer Aniston's great on The Morning Show, but I mean, Elizabeth Coleman's great in everything, so she's probably good in The Crown, I would think. Sandra Oh, I know is very good in Killing Eve, too. Okay, so supporting actor drama, Nicholas Braun in Succession, don't know. Billy Crudup in The Morning Show, he was great. That was a good one. Kieran Culkin in Succession, Mark Duplass, Morning Show. Giancarlo Esposito for Better Call Saul, he plays Gus. Again, I haven't seen this latest season, but he's always pretty good as Gus. Matthew McFadden in Succession. Bradley Whitford, Handmaid's Tale. Jeffrey Wright in Westworld. All right. Again, I haven't seen most of those shows. So, I mean, of the two people in The Morning Show, I'd give it to... Well, they're both pretty good, I would say. Probably Billy Crudup I would give it to first. And then... Giancarlo Esposito. I haven't seen this season, like I said, but he's always good as Gus. Man, that's a good character. And then for supporting actress, Helena Bonham Carter for The Crown. Laura Dern for Big Little Lies. I saw part of the first season and just was not hooked on that show. Julia Garner in Ozark, she's great. Thandie Newton in Westworld. Fiona Shaw, Killing Eve. Sarah Snook for Succession. Meryl Streep for Big Little Lies. And Samira Wiley for Handmaid's Tale. Again, I haven't seen most of those shows, but Big Little Lies I wasn't really that into for season 1. I gave it a couple episodes and then... I don't know, sort of gave up on it, I guess. So I've definitely not seen anything from season 2 of that. But those are like the biggies, and there's a lot of other nominations too for variety show and limited. I guess the limited series we can talk about too, because that usually gets some good love. Let's scroll down here. Limited series, Little Fires Everywhere. Ooh, all right. Well, we're gonna talk about that later. Mrs. America. I loved the first episode of. Have to see the rest of it. Unbelievable. That was amazing. I gave that an A. I think that was an A. Unorthodox. I didn't love it. I've only seen the first episode. Watchmen I have to get on too. I saw one episode of that. That might be one of my big binges coming up here for the Watchmen. Watchmen, by the way, has more nominations than anything. 11 nominations total. All in the limited series sort of thing. Outstanding TV movie, American Son, Bad Education. Dolly Parton's Heartstrings, I don't understand that. That's a show, not a movie. I don't quite get that. But El Camino, Breaking Bad movie, I did see that. Kimmy Schmidt, I saw that. And then you've got, for acting, you've got all the people you'd expect. Pretty much all the actors from the people, or from the shows we just mentioned. All right. Jeremy Irons in Watchmen. Hugh Jackman in Bad Education. Boy, I have to watch that, whatever that is. Paul Mescal in Normal People, that was great. Jeremy Pope in Hollywood, that was okay. Mark Ruffalo, oh yeah, he played those twins, and I Know This Much Is True. That was really good. He's great in that. Lead actress Cate Blanchett for Mrs. America, Shira Haas for Unorthodox, Regina King for The Watchmen. I mean, come on, she's going to win. Octavia Spencer for Self-Made. Oh, and Kerry Washington for Little Fires Everywhere. Okay, boy, though that might be the hardest one of any of these categories. Lead actors in a limited series or movie. I mean, Regina King, Octavia Spencer, Kerry Washington all give like amazing performances there. There's actually a bunch of Mrs. America nominations too. A couple supporting actresses as well. Udo Adoba, Margot Martindale, and Tracy Ullman all got nominated for supporting for Mrs. America. I got to finish that too at some point. Reality. This one's interesting. The Masked Singer nailed it. RuPaul's Drag Race, Top Chef, and The Voice. Survivor used to win reality every single year. It was like Survivor and The Amazing Race were like always up for it. Now it's Masked Singer. My God. Variety, Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Full Frontal, Samantha Bee, Jimmy Kimmel, John Oliver, and Stephen Colbert. That all makes sense. All right, so there you go. I mean, Watchmen has the most with 11 nominations overall. Succession is next with 10. I got to get on that Succession show. Ozark with 9, Mrs. Maisel, Schitt's Creek with 8, and The Crown and Mrs. America with 6 each. So, yeah, some interesting stuff. We'll see what happens. I have, I guess, if it's September 20th, I have about a month and a half to watch some of these shows. That's why I chose Little Fires Everywhere this week, because it got so many nominations. So hopefully I will follow that up with some of these other ones, Watchmen, Succession, etc. I'd like to see What We Do in the Shadows too, although I'd probably have to binge season 1 first, but it's only a half-hour show, so it's only 10 episodes, a half hour each is only 5 hours per season. I could honestly knock that out in like a 2-day binge probably. So maybe I'll do that too. But as for who's going to win, who might win, I don't know. I'm not going to theorize that just because I haven't seen a lot of the shows. The comedies is where I've seen the most, but even that, I mean, there's a lot of good ones up. It's anybody's guess. So that's sort of the news for the week. We'll have real news next week with renewals and reboots and all that good stuff. But first, let's get into the reviews. And first up for our reviews is Cursed. This is new on Netflix, which means all the episodes are up right now. It's 10 episodes total, and it's basically the whole King Arthur story. It's a reimagining of the legend of King Arthur, told through the eyes of Nimue, who is a heroine played by Katherine Langford, with a mysterious gift who is destined to become the Lady of the Lake, which is someone I sort of vaguely know about in the Arthurian legend. And her mother dies, soon in the start of the show, and she finds an unexpected partner in young Arthur, who is a mercenary, and they go on a quest to find Merlin and, of course, the big sword, the ancient sword. So that is where we're at here. This is an okay show. I feel like it's been a little while, at least maybe a month or two, since we've gotten one of these, like, straight-ahead, just fantasy-type shows. Like, we want to be Game of Thrones, we want to be The Witcher, we want to be Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff. And very few of them leave any sort of imprint on me, personally. This is not really my genre, but there are things I like about certain things in the genre, enough that I feel like I can tell the good from the bad. But I actually feel like I liked this a little better than a lot of people out there, because both critics and audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes are not strong for this show. I thought it was okay. Katherine Langford, I typically like. I'm not positive that she was the right one for the role here. She does okay. I think she's better in scenes where she has to be a little more forceful. But the powers she has are very vague. It's not quite explained why she can help certain people and not others. Maybe they get into this later in the series. For these kind of shows, I don't binge them. I watch the first episode or two and kind of base my review off of that. And sometimes that's not the best way to do it, but I'm not going to sit here and watch 10 hours of 5 different shows every week. So, especially if it's not something I'm like that into. So I can only grade it off what I've seen. But so far, it's I don't quite understand her powers. The set pieces I find to be very bland here. Obviously it's sort of dark anyway because it's a darkly themed show, but but the set pieces are not exciting or engaging. They're all quite bland. She's okay in the lead role, but again, I just don't think she was right for it. I think they could have went in another direction there. And it's also, I thought, kind of soapy in the dialogue. Like, when I think of strong dialogue for this type of show or movie, like, the cream of the crop is like Lord of the Rings and that kind of stuff. But, The Witcher was really good. Carnival Row, I thought, was really good I think that's on Amazon. I graded that last fall, almost a year ago now. And the dialogue here is just a little too, like, it's not necessarily campy, but I think it's a little bit over-the-top soapy in some aspects. And I'm also not positive what sort of fantasy audience the show is going for, because I feel like it's not mature enough for, like, the adult audience of something like Game of Thrones, and I think it's a little, like, not kid-friendly, because, well, okay, one thing I actually did appreciate about it is it didn't go over the top with the typical Netflix, like, oh, we're on Netflix, we can show boobs, and we can do this, and we can drop a bunch of, language. It definitely is a little bit more reserved in that arena, which I liked, but it, was it a little too sanitized? I don't think that necessarily, but I think because of all the offerings on Netflix, especially some that are in this fantasy vein, I think teenagers that watch this would be like, this isn't compelling enough for me, but is it, I mean, I think it's, it's good for maybe like tweens, like 12, 13, I know 13's not really a tween, but, and early teens, tweens and early tweens, like 11, 12, 13, 14, I think this is kind of the wheelhouse for them. I'm not sure if that's the direction that they were intending, though, when they made the show. Like, I know it's kind of weird, but I don't know. It's definitely not mature enough for some of the older shows, but is it even, like, enough for teenagers to be engaged, or would they be bored? I don't know. But these kinds of shows are sort of a dime a dozen since Game of Thrones left. I never would have probably sought any of them out if not reviewing them for this show. This is definitely sort of in the middle of the pack, but on like the lower end of the middle of the pack. And I wish they got a better lead actress. I like Langford in the other things I've seen her in, like 13 Reasons Why and Love, Simon, but like, I just don't think she's right for this. And she's basically, carrying this. She's the star of the show. It's not about King Arthur. It's about her. So I'm going to leave Cursed with a C. It is all right. So up next is United We Fall. This is a network live-action sitcom, laugh track, I guess, or filmed in front of an audience, whatever you want to call it, on ABC, multi-camera show. Will Sasso is the star from good old Mad TV back in the day, and something I love him in, the Three Stooges movie where he plays Curly. It's him and Christina Vidal Mitchell starring as, parents with two small kids, and they're just at their breaking point, and things are, a little crazy in their lives, and it's, look, it's a typical network sitcom with a multi-camera view. It's like Man with a Plan. It's like Still Standing. It's like I'm trying to think of, like, it's sort of like King of Queens, but they don't have kids. But it's in that sort of fat guy hot wife motif that we've come to see in a lot of these shows lately. Man with the Plan didn't have that, but they have a different dynamic sort of. But I don't know. Dude, these shows are just not that good. You've got Jane Curtin, who I love as Will Sasso's character's mom, but she's like wacky, and she lives with them, and she's just sort of, she's a little wacky grandma. And then you have the brother-in-law played by Guillermo Diaz, who played on Scandal. He is easily one of my least favorite actors out there. I first saw him in Scandal. I know he's done other things before and since, but I first saw him on Scandal, and he played Huck, and it was awful, and every scene he was in, he was just chewing up the scenery and overacting and being so effing annoying. I just hated the character, and everything I've seen him since, I'm just like, I hate this this guy and this character. That he is sort of, he kind of plays the same character every time, except this one is a comedy version. But he plays Chewie. He's like a, hard ass, brother-in-law. Oh, I'm going to take care of things, for your kid, sister. Like, I'll go down there and talk to the school, But it's like, okay, this is kind of like what you did in Scandal. You talk tough and like whatever. He's horrible. Get him out of here. And the chemistry's okay between the two leads, the adults, but boy, the jokes are not there. I mean, in terms of the laugh track or live audience sitcoms that I can deal with these days, you've got a couple of strong ones, like The Connors. Obviously, I love, long from the Roseanne days. I mean, I love Roseanne, love The Connors almost just as much as Roseanne. One of my favorite shows on right now. But I also really enjoy Mom. That's in like season 7, and I think is still doing pretty well. So I like Mom. And I actually like The Neighborhood on CBS for some reason, the one with Cedric the Entertainer and Max Greenfield. I for some reason I find that show very funny, and I kind of liked Man with a Plan too. That's canceled now, but I liked that as well. So there's definitely a few of the laugh track multi-camera sitcoms that I can deal with, and some I actually emphatically enjoy. But this has some lazy writing. The jokes are just horrible. They're either predictable or not funny. Jane Curtin as the wackadoo mom, that's okay, but I don't know. We've seen that time and again. Will Sasso can be very funny, and I think he's a charismatic lead in... Well, he's never really been a lead, I suppose, but when I've seen him in things, I thought he was very funny on Mad TV back in the day. But that doesn't always translate to sitcom dad or sitcom lead. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And here I don't think it does. I think he is a bad actor. I think he's a good comedian. I think when he's doing sketches on Mad TV, or when he's doing stand-up, or when he was doing Curly on Three Stooges movie, I think all of that was good. But even the Three Stooges movie is really, it's not him doing an original character. It's his take basically on the Curly character. So it's almost like doing a Mad TV sketch. Like he's basically doing an impression. Here he's being himself, and it's not that appealing. I don't think he's a good actor. So this was easily one of the worst shows of the year for me. I leave United We Fall with a D. Finally, for the new shows, we're going to get to Tig and Seek. This is an adult... Well, I don't know if it's really an adult cartoon, but it's from Cartoon Network. I wouldn't say it's an adult cartoon. It actually, I would think, is more of like a Nickelodeon-type cartoon for the older crowd. It's not for 6-year-olds, I don't think, but it reminds me a lot of some of the early 2000s Cartoon Network stuff, like Foster's Home, or... obviously Dexter's Laboratory goes back even further than that, but it's sort of in that vein, and along with some of the Nickelodeon shows I've covered on this show lately. But it stars this kid named Tiggy, who is 8 years old. That's the Tig part of it. I thought it was about comedian Tig Notaro, but it's not. And he's got a cat named Guiseek, who is a gadget building cat, and he's very cute, and so that's the Seek part of Tig and Seek. And basically they are going around looking for lost items in their town, Ouija City, and they are part of the Department of Lost and Found. It's started by, I guess, his great uncle or something. We find out in the first episode. It's some blood relation. But like a lot of the Cartoon Network stuff, this is shown in segments, so it's 2 11 or 12 minute segments for the half-hour program. Obviously it's not a half hour because it's on HBO Max, so there's no commercials, so it's 24 minutes. But if it were on a network, it would be a half hour with the commercials. But so like a lot of the stuff lately I've been doing for the kids shows, these are just segments. So I watched the first 2 of them. I think this is a pretty funny show. I mean, let me see who voices Tig actually, because he's pretty funny. Mike Chillane? I don't know. Has he done anything that I've heard of? Not really. He's written on a bunch of things. Oh, okay. Oh, Uncle Grandpa. Okay, I never watched that, but that was a very popular Cartoon Network show. So, alright, so he's done a bunch of animation, a couple of live stuff here and there, but mostly animation. But Jermaine Clement is also in the show as... his character is called This Guy, and he's just one of the people at the Lost and Found. Him, I recognize right away. I didn't even know he was in it and then I heard the voice. I was like, that's got to be Jermaine Clement, like from back in the Flight of the Conchord days. So I looked it up, and sure enough, it is. But I think this show has a sharper wit than some of the kids' shows. I think this is something that, like a lot of the shows on Cartoon Network in the last decade, 15 years, I think this could be enjoyed equally by kids and adults. I think I think it's smart enough for adults, but silly enough for kids. And I think the premise is just fun. The kid's cute, the cat is cute. They're drawn sort of, I wouldn't say it's a cute drawing of the cat, but like he's a cute character. And yeah, I think it hits kind of all the buttons, for what you'd want a kids show to be that can also be watched by adults. And it's not, like a lot of the cartoons, especially on Cartoon Network, I guess more for the Adult Swim crowd, are definitely like higher echelon, like with terms of cursing or adult situations and stuff. This is not that. So it's just cute. It's a cute show, So I'm gonna leave it with a B. There's not much more to say about Tig and Seek. It is on HBO Max, because I really want to talk about Little Fires Everywhere. I finished this the other day, binged it all in, I think it was probably 2 days. I didn't rewatch the first episode because I had seen that just a couple months ago for this show and reviewed it pretty favorably. I like to not go back to those original reviews and see what my grade is, just because I don't want it to give me bias for what the current grade is for the whole series. It's definitely different when you're only grading one episode, but when you grade the whole season, it's a little different. And this is, I guess, this is just a mini series. It's not going to be coming back for season 2 or anything. This is it. We get 8 episodes of this, and it's over. It's by, or it's on, I should say, Hulu. And it comes with a great pedigree, the best-selling book by Celeste Ng, and it stars Kerry Washington, Reese Witherspoon, Joshua Jackson, who is surprisingly good here, and then a lot of kid actors too that are fairly new to the scene. I certainly didn't recognize hardly any of them, but you've got, I would say that the main kid maybe is Lexi. And she's played by Jade Pettyjohn. She's the oldest daughter of Reese and Joshua Jackson, and basically they are the Richardson family. There's a bunch of kids there. She has 4 kids. Lexi is one of them. You've got Pearl played by Pearl is Kerry Washington's daughter. Izzy is the other daughter there. Megan Stott plays her. Don't know who that is, but she was great. And then the boys Moody and Trip, played by Gavin Lewis and Jordan Elsas, respectively. And they are the typical, white, rich couple. White suburbanites, the WASPs, if you will. They just have it all, on the surface. They are just picture perfect. And, both the parents work, and they're respected in their field. And Joshua Jackson plays Bill, who is a lawyer, and then Reese Witherspoon is Elena, who is a journalist. And in the first episode, we meet Kerry Washington's character. I talked about this obviously before when I talked about the show, but she plays Mia, who is basically a freelance artist, but she also is really struggling to make ends meet. She works as a waitress, but Elena kind of feels bad for her after seeing her and her daughter Pearl sleeping in the car. Pearl, by the way, is played by Lexi Underwood, who's also great. And she offers them a job to basically, or offers her a job, not them, but offers her a job to kind of, give her some employment and a place to stay. And Elena also is a bit of a landlady. She has a couple of properties that she rents out. So, hey, I'm going to rent you out this property. If you want to watch my house and do some dishes and do some laundry and da-da-da-da. So she becomes kind of, not really a nanny, but sort of a housekeeper, you could say. And so that was sort of all in the first episode. We talked about all that already. But I don't do spoilers, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about the whole series, but in terms of plot. But I will say that as we move along here, there is a lot of stuff about certainly race relations, class relations, between rich and poor, There's a lot of stuff about motherhood here because about halfway through the series, we find out that one of the gals that Mia works with at the restaurant is this Asian woman who gave up her baby, left it at the door of the police station or fire station or whatever, and it turns out that the Richardson family's good friends are going to adopt that baby, and so there's a big custody battle. And really, this is a story of, three different mothers for sure. Richardson's, it's about the whole family. We get a full scope of the kids, and the put upon dad, that Joshua Jackson plays. And then, of course, for Mia, it's just her and her daughter. And then for, her friend who's trying to get the baby back, it's really just her by herself. And then the baby's sort of up in the air. So, there's a lot of that stuff weaved throughout. There's one episode here, it's, I believe, episode 6. It's either 5 or 6. It's somewhere like sort of in the middle, but towards the end of the 8 episodes, that is solely a flashback episode to when Mia and Elena were teenagers, high schoolers, maybe about to graduate, that sort of area of their lives. And they got completely different actors to play them, which is fine. But to me, it laid the groundwork for the last couple episodes. It definitely laid out a lot of sort of things that we as the audience did not know yet. And we were like, oh, okay, cool, like that provides me a lot of background on these characters I didn't have before. But to spend the entire episode on them when there's only 8 episodes total, I don't know. I feel like maybe we could have sparsed out those in different parts of the series instead of just one episode where we just didn't see Reese Witherspoon or Kerry Washington at all. I don't want to say that it would be like This Is Us, but it would be kind of the This Is Us template, to be honest, where we see, and honestly, I haven't read the book, but I imagine the book probably does break it up more. I can't imagine there's a whole huge chunk just in the middle of the book that says, okay, now we're flashing back to 20 years ago and we're going to learn about these gals. I don't know. I feel like their background is probably peppered out more throughout the book, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I did do sort of a look-up article after I watched everything to see how it compares to the book, to see what the differences are. Because I'm always sort of intrigued about what sort of liberties are taken to get it to the big or the small screen as opposed to off the page. And there were a few, major differences. For one thing, the Mia and Pearl characters it's never really specified what race they are. So there's not a lot of, race relation issues, I guess, in the book. The show is littered with them, which, to be honest, is fine and dandy for me. I mean, listen, I am all about the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and I have really enjoyed the last few months diving into some of these, more race relation type shows, and I'm excited to finally sit down and do The Watchmen. I saw the first episode of that back in the fall when it premiered, so I could review it for this show. But I'm very excited to watch that whole thing because obviously that is very, very heavy with race stuff. But yeah, apparently the book didn't touch on that at all, so that was a big glaring difference. There's also some plot differences that I don't think I really need to go into here in the review, but that were sort of interesting. But one of the things a lot of the stuff at the end is different, which of course I'm not going to talk about here because of spoilers, but things that happen at the end of the show, there's 2 or 3 key things that are different from the book. Some of which I liked. One of the ones I didn't like that the show did was we don't get a complete picture by the end of what happens with the Asian baby thing. We see something that happens, but apparently in the book it's really fleshed out and we find out a lot more. In the show it was not. So that was definitely one thing I was I wonder what happened with with this storyline. So I'm glad that the book covers that. But I definitely, I can see why, especially if you're going to get Kerry Washington, don't just make her, this character, Mia. Kerry Washington is a strong and fierce black woman. So, you want to have her, character embody that sort of mentality. And I think there's a lot of things about the character that purposely make Elena sort of nervous because she is black. And so, obviously, the book doesn't touch on that at all. The show does. The greatest part, I think, about this show is the acting. I think Kerry Washington is just dynamite. I mean, I obviously had seen her in things going back to the Ray Charles movie, and maybe even before that. That's, I think, the first time I really noticed her. And I watched Scandal for 5 years. Scandal got way too soapy for me and over the top, and I already talked about how I hated the guy that played Huck. But it was just it just got way too over the top, way too soapy. And so even Kerry Washington's performance ended up being really amped up, and it was just kind of all right, we got it, But here she really allows herself to embody this character and this downtrodden woman with some mystery about her past, some mystery about how she's bringing up her daughter Pearl. A lot of things that are not quite laid out, and boy, she just lays them out, And some of the best scenes are her and Elena just sort of going head to head. Elena senses some things that aren't right, but it's she either just kind of neglects them, or she's well, maybe I'm being silly, or Bill, her husband, is you're being silly. So there's a lot of that. But the other great thing, other than the acting, is the focus on the kids, because the kids really start to get in real good with each other. So Pearl, is welcome at this house, and kind of has a thing for one, maybe both of the brothers. Meanwhile, the Richardson daughters are having their own sort of relationship issues at school. One of them gets pregnant, and so the kid dynamic, that's something I didn't expect, because all of the promos are obviously focusing mainly on Kerry Washington, Reese Witherspoon, and the house burning up. That's the whole the whole theme. And there is several episodes end with fires, I will say that. So there are little fires everywhere throughout the series, but also it's kind of metaphorical as well. But that's kind of all we saw from the poster and the ads that Hulu ran leading up to it, really focused on that. But it really is fully about both of these families coming together. I don't think this is the strongest thing I've seen this year. Certainly in the miniseries category alone, I think Unbelievable is the better show overall of the two that I've seen in full. But this, I think, is really, really a strong showcase. Reese Witherspoon, has gotten a couple of great acting roles this year, because I thought she was great in the morning show too. And it's kind of a bummer Jennifer Aniston got a nomination and Reese didn't, because I thought Reese was great in that as well. I think she's playing a similar role here that we've seen recently, of the sort of, rich, privileged, white woman. On the surface, everything looks great. We've seen Reese do that, a couple of times. I feel like Big Little Lies is one of them too. Again, I only watched the first episode or two and then sort of passed on it. But I feel like that's sort of in that same vein. So maybe that's why she gets passed over for some awards, because her characters do seem, kind of similar. But she's always been one of my favorite actresses since back in Pleasantville and the first Legally Blonde and all that kind of stuff. But I think she's really, the last 2 or 3 years, the projects that she's picking, really ever since probably Wild, the movie where she's out in the woods hiking, probably since around that era, Wild, The Good Lie, she's really been picking, I think, projects that speak to her, and so I love seeing her do these roles. But But Kerry Washington is the one that just knocks it out of the park for me. I think there's going to be some interesting competition at the Emmys between her and Octavia Spencer, and a couple of the other people I had mentioned. But boy, this is definitely one to watch. I've really enjoyed it. I think it veers on the soap opera territory a little bit too much. By the way, with the old Reese projects, Election has to be mentioned too. Election was the first time I saw her where I was like, oh my god, this is, I had watched Cruel Intentions and stuff, but Election, I was like, holy cow, this is the woman. But anyway, so I love her, but Kerry Washington, man, is just a powerhouse in this. And I think the kids are really good too. I think the kids, for as much screen time as they get and as much storyline as they get, I do think they're a little one-dimensional. So I will say that. I would say, that could be perked up a little bit. Give them a little bit more than just like, okay, you're the jock of the family. You're the straight A student of the family. They try to layer it a little bit, but I'm not sure it always hits. But I thought this was very good. And something I also didn't mention the first time I talked about it that goes throughout. I had actually written it down the first time and forgot. But the soundtrack, it's great. I'm not sure if Alanis Morissette's one of the producers or not, but there's a few key scenes set to cover versions of Alanis Morissette songs. But it takes place in '97, and so a lot of the soundtrack is that '97, mid to late '90s era, Chumbawamba, Sugar Ray, Natalie Imbruglia, Alanis Morissette, like that kind of thing. And sometimes it's the original versions, sometimes it's a cover version. That's maybe like Torn by Natalie Imbruglia is in a slowed down version, like a more piano version, but it all works with the scene. So the soundtrack is very key to this show as well. So overall, I really enjoyed this. It was definitely worth the binge for me. I leave Little Fires Everywhere with a B+. So thank you for watching. We will be back next week with another big binge, I guess. In addition to reviewing some of the smaller movies as well, or smaller movies, the smaller TV shows. By smaller, I just mean I'm only going to watch an episode or two because they're brand new. But I'm also going to binge. I really want to get, pretty much my binge list is like what's on the Emmy nomination list. So I want to binge, The Watchmen in full, Mrs. America, Succession, Rami, What We Do in the Shadows. A lot of things I need to see and I haven't gotten to yet. So we'll look forward to that over the next few weeks. But thanks for watching, and hey, we'll see you next time. Bye.